Hi, great to be here. Thank you for having me. So I work at White Arkitekter, but I'm not an architect. I'm a social anthropologist, and that means that I'm very, very interested in people and people's relationship to each other, but specifically to places. So I'm here today to talk to you about social aspects in urban planning and architecture, and I will do that by telling you a little about me, what an anthropologist are doing with architects. I will try to explain social sustainability in urban planning, and I will also stress why dialogue is the best and only democratic tool for urban planning. But first, this. Let me tell you about this. This is Comuna 13 in Medellin, which is a city in Colombia. You might be more familiar with the term favelas. It's the same as comunas. I was here about 4 years ago, and I was amazed and impressed by how good people outside the Western world actually work with social sustainability. In the 80s and the 90s, this was a scary place to be at. It was actually informally run by the drug cartel king Pablo Escobar's guys. You know Pablo Escobar. You've seen Narcos by now. You just could not be there. There were homicides every day. People were afraid to walk. Kids were afraid to go to school. And now it's this amazing place. They take busloads of people, tourists, to actually come there and look at their new city and also to buy things so they earn money from it. They do not feel like they are some animals in caves that we're watching. They're happy, they're proud, they're waving, and they say, come, look at our wonderful, colorful place. We have mural paintings everywhere. We have this amazing roller skate or escalator that actually make people to connect from the top to the end and out south to Medellin. Before, young people, children and elderly could not move about there. There was no mobility at all. And what they also did was that they worked with public health everywhere that they could. If there was a staircase for the parents, there was a slides for the kids. So they could go there, slide down, run up. And how did this happen then? Well, a major, some kind of guy major said, enough with Escobar. Enough with having people living in fear. So he got the richest companies, I think 2 or 3 companies of Colombia, to finance this renovation, not to gain money, just because it had to be done. And it turns out that there's this Catholic culture that when enough is enough, people actually roll up their sleeves and start working together. So he gathered the citizens, and he gathered the drug sellers, the church, and everyone that had anything to do with this and said, enough. Let's make these changes. And that escalator actually came about 2011. It changed everything. Now, I've followed this project, so I'm wondering, did the economy change? Are people to have more money? No, not necessarily. But the quality of life have increased enormously. Why can we not do more projects like this? Now, over to me. And welcome to me, welcome to my home. I don't live here anymore, but I used to. I grew up here. It's an area in north of Stockholm. I wish I'd taken this picture 20 years ago. I didn't. I took it about 5 years ago. It's been a bit more renovated now, but still, it sort of looked like this. And growing up here, this is the reason why I'm so interested in place identity, because I know that the place that we identify the most with are the places we grew up in. And those places will inform everything about us. They will set limits and boundaries and opportunities to who we can be, who we can become. They will decide who our neighbor is, our husbands, our wives. They will decide which education we will get, if we get one, and what kind of job we get. Our place identity will also affect how we feel about ourselves. If we feel like we have the opportunity to take on the world or not. So it's so extremely important that we are creating places and identification to places that are more positive than negative. Now, this is only the physical. It's negative. I mean, people from the outside would say to me, since I was a child, oh my God, how can you live there? Isn't it dangerous? Are people who live there dangerous? And it affected me and our neighbors. We thought that we were dangerous. We thought that something wrong with us. People keep asking us how we can live like this. But the truth is, it wasn't that terrible, because the social and culture atmosphere was kind of great. So 10 years ago, when Sweden said, the building industry said, we urgently need to renovate 80% of our million program areas, that's what they're called in Sweden, 80% of our million program areas. And I said, yes, now is the time to get into urban planning. Now I can work with builders, architects, and inform them about the good social aspects of this, at the same time as we take away the negative aspects. And I saw an amazing opportunity to work with citizen dialogue, human-centered projects, where we would talk to people and get informed by in which way we can do this and the best way. I saw a great opportunity to actually create positive and strong, great memories of the identity for the children growing up related to their place. I was sad to understand that this was not where the great investments were going. The investors wanted to put their money into newly developed areas. Industrial areas, seaport areas. It doesn't only happen in Sweden, it happens all over Europe, all over the world. These industrial areas and seaport areas are expensive lands. And this you can sell quick for an exclusive customer. So in this building boom that we're going through with the urbanization, the money and in the investments were happening here. So I thought, okay, my God, how can we work with social aspects there? How can we get mixed economies into these new areas? And maybe take some of those investment and put here. But then, of course, it's the visions that guides architects and planning that are so important for us. The vision is the strategic document that says, this is how you're going to develop an area, this is how you're going to develop a city. It's the master plan. And sometimes it's a detailed plan. And sometimes it's a structural plan. They will actually decide if the city is going to be exclusive or inclusive. So we thought, how can we work even on that strategic level to actually get down to this? And this is what we do. I love our job. We are a whole gang now at White that are actually working with this daily. And we say that we work with better planning processes. We try to, like a chameleon, actually become a part of areas that we are developing and the people that we're developing. We try to have in-depth methods to really understand what's going on and what the needs are and what needs to be done. The great thing with working with architects is that we can actually make a drawing out of it that becomes a building or a plan. It's not a report that goes into someone's whatever and no one ever reads. It becomes a plan. That's why it's so good to work with architects. And to work with social sustainability, you could say that it's very, very much environmental psychology. You get really good in understanding what places, spaces, building works for people and what doesn't work for people and for whom it works and for people who doesn't work. I work a lot with learning environments and I understand because I follow young people when they enter schools and ask them about how this space, this door, this entrance made them feel. And some of them will say, this is not for me. And others will say to other, usually big doors, they will say, I know I can be something here. This big entrance did it for me. This is the school I'm going to attend. The other aspects of the whole thing is that we talk and talk and talk to people, which means that we get more and more aware of the inequalities in our systems. There's something wrong with the democracy. It doesn't work for everyone. We need to change the way we plan. We need to have better methods to include everyone, to include children, to include women. They're not necessarily a part, especially not when it comes to public places. So you get very interesting to have social welfare goals in your planning. So when we do planning, whether it's a detailed plan or a building, we make sure that we actually have lifted all kinds of voices that are not usually being heard. So that's social sustainability. I'm going to talk, I only have limited time. I want to share a lot of products with you, but I'm going to share some of the products that have really inspired me and learned me a lot, both from negative ways and also positive ways. One project that I cannot stop thinking about was the big dialogues that we did in Järva about 8 years ago. Järva is a million program area with a lot of people in the north of Stockholm, northwest of Stockholm. The client said, I want to know what everyone in Husby, which was the area, what everyone in Husby needs for us to make this place great. And we said, come, give us your comments. Thousands of comments came, actually 3,027 comments. And about 30% of them we could give to the client, and the client could handle. 70% of them they couldn't handle because they were concerns that we couldn't do anything about. I'm worried about my son. I think he's taking drugs. Why doesn't the school work? I don't care about our houses. I want a job. Help me get a job. So we hadn't, like in Medellin, manned up to take care of all of these comments that were coming in. So we made a fool of ourselves there, really. But what I thought was really good, we all needed to learn that lesson hard. You can ask that big question if you can man up and take care of the result. If you can't do that, limit the question and say, you can only have an opinion about this, because this I can do something about. And that's okay. That's honest. But a great tool that we got from us was this. This is like a homemade sociotope map. Everyone that came into the venue that we were giving a blue dot, a yellow dot, and we say, put the yellow dot where you live. And then they were given a green dot, and we said, put the green dot at the place that you think is good, and describe it on this note why you think it's good. And put the red dot on a place that you think is bad, and describe why it's bad. And all of a sudden, we have this map who informed us so much about the area. And this is a good discussion material that we try to use in all of our projects in different ways now. Another project that I really love is we started this in 2010, and we're still working with it. It's in Nairobi, in Kenya. It's an art center, and the client there, who is the owner, said, I want to have a culture center that is sustainable. And I know you can work with sustainability question, environmental sustainable, economically sustainable, because I want the economy to go here, and also socially sustainable. We want to work with people, we want to work with dialogues, we want to work with the workshops, and gather our creative economy here in Nairobi. And that's what we did. We took our process and we worked with local architectural firm and local people to have dialogues about the area. And we got so much information about something that everyone wanted to talk about, and that's identity, Nairobian identity. What is that? And we got so much information that we were actually asked by Nairobi City Council to make an input to their master plan, which is great. And we also were able to narrow down this idea of identity that young people, old people, children, men and women could relate to in the whole of Sub-Sahara, which is the notion of fractals. Fractals is a pattern that I'm sure you used to see in braids. And you used to see it in textile pattern from Africa as well, in batik. And it is actually an old way in how you organized your villages. And I'm from Ethiopia, and I look at urban planning there a lot. And this is also how I've seen a lot of village structures when I'm there. So this actually ticked, and we were able to create this amazing house from fractals, not only in the facade, but on the inside that people really can relate to. It's not built yet. It's completely drawn. We're trying to get financing for it. Hopefully, in a couple of years, it's going to be there. In the project of moving Kiruna, we won the competition a couple of years ago. We, of course, made a plan, a physical plan, that were in tune with what people wanted. So the soft infrastructure is really built there. But to make this competition really strong, we knew that we needed to work with the soft infrastructure even more. So we had a lot of process tools that actually support this. For instance, when We presented the plan. We talked as much about the plan as having a big recycle station where we should recycle the things that were not going to be moved to the new Kiruna. I mean, we're moving about 20 houses. So there's a lot of houses. There's a lot of materials that we need to recycle. How can we handle this? And we will not stop talking about this. It's not only the houses. It's public buildings. It's bench parks. When we had dialogues there. We spoke to all the population. They would tear up about memories about that park bench that they sat down and had their first kiss, and we thought, oh my God, imagine if you go into this recycle place and take a piece of this bench and take it home. That's for memory. I also wanted to take up one thing that's really, really important. When we're out in public environment, the question that we always ask ourselves is, where are the girls? And this is actually an adequate question. Not only in Sweden. I've spoken to a lot of international colleagues that keep on saying, where are the girls? Statistics say that 80% of our public active spaces are occupied by boys. This is from the age between 7 and 19. Up until 7 is quite equal, playing yards. After 19 years old, it gets more equal again. But 80%, that's a lot. Where are the girls? So when we ask the girls, where are you? What do you want? What do you want to do? They will usually say, well, a shopping mall. So we need to translate. What do they mean with shopping mall? Because they don't necessarily want to spend money. They want to be in a place where they can hang out with each other without having to do something active as playing soccer or or doing skateboard. Because this is how you plan today. You plan active areas that often boys, take over. Skateboard is parkour or whatever. We need to be much better in handling young girls. So we have this project, in Swedish, it's called Flickrum. In English, we call it Urban Girls Movement. It's actually about putting young women on the agenda of public spaces and start to reinvent what public space can be for them. Because 80% only to guys, we're actually talking about doing a girls' park. We don't even know what a park for girl is, but we can try at least. That would be interesting. And also, again, to actually stress the strength of participation with youths in our area. I live in Bagarmossen in the south of Stockholm. Last summer, a gang of young people, actually 16 young people, were able to be a part of creating mural paintings all over Bagarmossen. I think it was in 4 or 5 places. And there's a lot of people tagging in Bagarmossen. You will see things on the wall. But this has been here now for 1 year in those 4 places. No one has ever written anything of it. It's so much strength when you actually get young people to get involved in planning and taking part of our city. And I think that's really the most democratic way of keep doing our urban planning. And with that, I have to say thank you for me.